to Working Dragon Mystic. I'm Drake. Today we're going to do a requested video. In fact, the most requested video I think I've had. A lot of people have seen on different social medias that I'm on that I make mead. So I've been getting a lot of requests to show a video on how to make mead. Now, mead can be a very complicated process, but it can also be one of the most simple processes. So what we're going to do here today is we're going to show how to make a very simple sweet mead, which is one I haven't actually done in a while, but it's easy to do. It's a lot of fun. It's something you can actually do at home. Now, this is not going to be stripped down as bare bones as it could be. I have a friend of mine that he actually does what he calls garage mead, which what we have here is 2 gallons of water. And he actually uses just one of these. He'll pour out, he will actually make his mead in that. He will use that as his fermenting vessel. Now, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to make 2 gallons of mead in this little small 2-gallon fermenter. Now, I want to be clear. This is actually for home brewing. This is not something that's had plaster or some other construction material in it. This is for home brewing, so don't just run to Home Depot. However, you can find these little fermenters on Amazon. Normally, I do 5-gallon batches. For this, we're just going to do 2 gallons, and this is actually going to be a series. So today I'm going to show you how to get into the fermenter, and then a few weeks later, when it's time to rack it, which is when you take it from this fermenter to the secondary fermenter and get it off all the yeast and the gunk, I'll show a video of how to do that. And then the final video will actually go into bottling it or finishing it. Now, you will need a few things. Obviously, you will need your fermenter, and I do recommend you get 2 of these. You will need at least 2 containers. You're also going to need some yeast. My preferred yeast for almost any mead is, it's a wine yeast called Lavalin 71B. My wife loves a lot of the sweeter meads and the fruit meads, and she's not a big fan of dry meads. So this is a wonderful all-purpose yeast. It'll get you right in the middle if you wanted to. Though any wine yeast will work, you can play around with it. Different yeast will yield a different result. Now, the most important ingredient in mead, which if you don't know, mead is honey wine. It's fermented honey. Is the honey. Now, depending on the honey you use, it will change the flavor of the mead. We do a lot of simple meads and a lot of fruit meads, so I don't really waste a lot of money on really expensive honeys. Though there are great raw organic honeys. I know orange blossom honey is really popular for meads, and it makes a really good mead. And anytime I can get it at a reasonable price, I buy plenty of it. But right now I can't get it at a reasonable price. So I'm just using grocery store clover honey. This container is 5 pounds, and I actually have 2 of them. So what we will be doing is normally I use about 3 pounds of honey per gallon of mead. So this time around I'm going to go for a slightly less sweet mead. I'm going to go for more of a dinner mead if I can. So I'm just going to use the 5 pounds. And we'll save that for back sweetening, which we'll talk about in another video, or if I feel it needs something added to it. Now again, this recipe is going to be very simple. It is for the home brewer. So we're not looking for anything massive or complicated. So to start off, we're going to get our honey into the bucket. Now, I don't want to waste your time with this because this stuff pours slow, so I'll cut and get that done and then show you. Okay, we do now have the honey in our bucket. As you can see, there's quite a bit of honey in there. Let's not pour it out just to show the camera. One thing I do want to make sure to tell everyone is everything here has been sanitized. I use something called Star Sands. Just like an ounce of this can sanitize 5 gallons or make 5 gallons of sanitizer, which I usually put into a fermenter, and I soak all my equipment and everything. And you want to make sure everything's sanitized. You want to make sure there's no yeast or any bacteria in your mead that you didn't put there. Now, one reason mead is a lot easier than wine and beer is honey is a natural antibacterial. So anything that is in your honey is not going to activate. Honey's shelf stable forever as far as I know. I've never seen honey actually go bad. I've seen it crystallize, but then you can just add some water to it and reconstitute it. So it's a wonderful little product, and that does make it a lot more forgiving for beginner homebrewers. Now, after getting all my honey out, I add a little water in this. And the reason is, I don't want to waste any honey that is in this container. And since we're going to be adding water anyways, this allows me to get the extra honey out. Easy as can be. Now once you have that, go ahead and take your water. And one of the benefits of buying water at the store that is actually sealed, you know it's sanitary. You don't have to worry about it. So this is just spring water. Do not buy distilled water because the yeast does need some nutrients and other things. And in my experience, distilled water is a lot harder to get going in your fermenter. Okay, I'm starting to... Clearly, I don't think this is actually a 2-gallon fermenter. It's okay, we can work with that, not a problem. We was only going to use 5 pounds of honey anyway. This is going to be sweet. My wife will love it. Okay, now, once you have your honey and your water in there, you want to stir it. Now, again, my spoon has been sitting in a bucket over here that I got sanitizer already mixed up in. Now, if you see some foam from the sanitizer in whatever you're making, whether it's mead or beer, don't worry about that. If you go to all your homebrewing forums, you'll find that there's actually a saying, don't fear the foam. And that's true. I have made brews that have had quite a bit of foam in them, and I've never had an issue, not once. So, in my opinion, it's better to worry about or not worry about the foam and have some foam floating around in there off my tools, and I know they're sanitized, as opposed to all this and something happens that doesn't ferment or it even goes bad. Because with mead, really the biggest problem I've seen is, for whatever reason, they get some wild yeast in there or something. Anyway, sorry about the jet noise. Anyways, they get some wild yeast in there or something, and it just eats it and turns it to vinegar. So you have a honey vinegar. But that's not what we're going for here. So make sure your tools and everything do stay sanitized. I do keep my sanitizer here beside me while I'm working. Again, so like when I'm done here, I can go ahead and put this back in there. And you want to stir this up really, really good. Now, while we are stirring this, I do want to go ahead and say, homebrewing is allowed in most states here in the U.S., but wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, do go online and check your homebrewing, local homebrewing laws. I know where I'm at, beer and mead and wines, I think I have, it's like 100 gallons I can do a year for private use, which that also means I can take them to a party that I go to, but I cannot distribute them or sell them. So make sure you're fully aware, because if I make too much, they can get me for distributing. But if I was to even brew 5-gallon batches monthly, I don't think, there's no way I could get that much. I don't drink that much. Most of my mead, we do consume it leisurely. Just me and my wife, but most of it, honestly, I use it for ritual use. And if y'all want, I'll be more than happy to show you how to make some fruit meads and other meads like that as well. Alright. And again, I apologize for the jet noise. We do live in a military town, and there's some festival going on right now, and the jets are flying over. So I'm going to try and edit out as much of the jet noise as I can, but I'm just going to have to apologize for it because there's really no way to guarantee the jets won't fly over. Now, once you have your mead stirred up really, really well, you're going to need something to add some nutrients to it because, like I said, honey doesn't have a lot of nutrients. It has a lot of sugar, but not nutrients. And the yeast will eat the sugar, but they need a little nutrient too. Now, you can buy something called yeast nutrient when you buy your fermenters. However, for those who are trying to do this as cheaply as possible, raisins. These are absolutely wonderful. I usually do not keep raisins in my house. So I actually do tend to buy the yeast nutrient more often than not. Mainly because I will eat raisins and I'm trying to eat a little healthier and stay away from sugar. So unfortunately for you all, we did buy those. Now once you got that in there, that's your nutrient, you got your honey, and you got your water. That is everything you need to make mead. That is your basic, simple mead. Now you don't have to do this, but this is an option. One of the big questions I get is, how do you know what the alcohol content of your mead is? Well, I use a hydrometer. And what that is, it's a little floaty thing, looks like a thermometer, goes in your little tube, and then you would put your mead, or some of your mead, into the hydrometer, and you would take what's called a gravity reading, or an original gravity reading. Again, all this has been sanitized. Now what you're doing is you're taking the sugar adds a certain amount of density to the water. Water on the hydrometer is 0, 0, 0, 0. It's just 0 down. So the honey, or the fermentables, are going to increase that number to some extent. And as it ferments, that number is going to lower. So once you're done, you can take a final reading and you can find out exactly how much alcohol you have. So, real quick, I'll have to duck down, so I'll cut that out. Okay, so our mead here is actually reading at 1.13. So that's actually close to, hold on, it gives you a predicted alcohol content. So if I was to spin this around and find that, okay, so this is predicting an alcohol content of 15% if everything ferments. So usually I don't do that. So usually I don't go for a full dry mead because it would be very dry if I fermented everything. So this particular mead, it's probably going to come out around 12 or 13. Now our yeast here actually, I think, has an alcohol tolerance near 16. So what that tells me is that I may have to end up back sweetening this mead, which is good because that'll be something else we can teach you in this series. Now for yeast, there's people who say start your yeast, put it in water, let it hydrate. You can get technical. Jet. Now you can do all that. There's nothing that says you can't. But again, we're keeping this simple. And to be honest with you, I've actually found this tends to work better for my meads for some reason. I actually just take my packet of yeast, which this whole packet will do 5 gallons, but I actually have more yeast than I need and it's about to expire. So we're just going to toss it all in there. Just toss it all in. I'm not even going to hydrate it. And like I said, I have found that for some reason that tends to work a lot better for me. Now I'm just going to let that float on the surface. Now in my sanitizer, my bucket has a lid. That lid has a hole drilled in it. Now if you buy these, they will come with the, make sure you get the hole pre-drilled, which I'll go ahead and link this fermenter below in the video. But the hole will already be pre-drilled, and you'll need that hole for your airlock. Now the airlock allows the gases released by the yeast to come out, but doesn't let anything else go in. So this is a sanitary precaution, keeps your meat clean, keeps it unaffected from the outside environment. Some people I have seen use balloons. Like I said, I've seen people who actually brew in these right here. Well, they will use a balloon. Now in your airlock, you just put a little water. In this case, I actually went ahead and put some sanitizer in there. You may have to add more water or sanitizer or something to your airlock throughout the fermentation. I've actually got a bottle of really cheap vodka that I will pour in there. Nothing will touch it. Now again, my airlock was sanitized, and as you can see, it just sits right on the top of my fermenter, just like that. That is it. That is all you need to do to get your mead started. Now in about 24 hours, I'm going to come back and I'm going to check this, and what you're looking for is this to start bubbling, or at the very least, because sometimes your fermenter's lid is tight enough to keep things out, the gases will still escape. So what you'll be looking for is the airlock, the water on it, where you want it to start balanced, and it'll push up and toward the exhaust. So what that tells you is there's gas being pushed up and being produced. That's what you're wanting. So we're going to let this sit for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks before we come back to it. And at that point, we'll make the second part in the series where we go over how to rack it, how to check and see how it's doing, all those good things. But for now, it's done. All I need to do now is take this and put it in a dark, cool spot. Ideally, you want to keep your mead somewhere that's anywhere from 60 to 80 degrees. And honestly, I prefer a 70 to 75 degree area if I can get it. So if you have a spare bathroom, closet, someplace, put it there. Now we did leave what's called headroom in this, and that's some like space in case it foams up and bubbles up, because it can actually overflow during fermentation. So what I like to do is I actually have a tub where I can set my fermenters in my brew area, which is too small, otherwise I'd be shooting there. But if you don't have that, or in some cases I've got so many fermenters going that I don't have room for all of them, your guest bathroom, you can set it in the bathtub. I've done that multiple times and it works out fine. Just make sure you don't let people use that restroom while it's in there. So this will be going into the tub in the brew area to sit for a few weeks. I'm going to record the gravity, which make sure you do have a notebook. You write everything down if you're wanting to track the gravity. You don't have to do that. Again, you can just let this ferment and go for a few weeks, and that's up to you. So this is a quick introduction on how to get a batch of mead started. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'll be happy to answer them. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit the notification button so you can be notified anytime we release a new video, and especially keep your eyes out for the next in the Mead series, because once this is done, we're going to be showing you how to rack it and get it into the second fermenter. I'm Drake, and this has been Working Dragon Mystic. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.